This is iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in endorsed series from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, the World of Outlaws, Aussie Supercars and more. Take on legendary circuits like Daytona, Silverstone and the Nürburgring. Join iRacing's global online racing community and get on track today at iRacing.com.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the Skip Barber World Cup here for Season 2. It's the penultimate round and our second trip to the UK. We're here at the Brands Hatch GP circuit for the second last round of this season. It's going to be another great race, a high-speed circuit with twists and turns and ups and downs, and this circuit really does have everything. So let's see how these Skip Barbers tackle it once more in another round of this great championship, round 6 of course. My name's Ewan O'Leary. I'll be alongside Dan Handover for the race here tonight, and it's the second time this week we've commentated together at this circuit, which is just bizarre, but we're expecting another good race. It is a good circuit, a lot of fun to drive. It remains to be seen how these particular cars are going to race this circuit, of course.
Yes, very, very true indeed, you say. Second time we've commentated around this circuit in the space of 7 days. The last one being in Radicals. And obviously Radicals a lot higher, a lot faster, higher downforce, cars behaving, we had some fantastic racing. A little bit tricky in some areas though, I think, with overtaking wise. It could sometimes with the Radicals a little bit tricky to overtake. I don't think we're going to see such issues, especially with aero, because of the Skip Barber being the lack of aero that we should say. So there's going to be some slipstreaming, down the back straight, going through down into Hawthorne, very, very fast corner. The entire third half, the last half of the lap is very, very fast. So that should lead to some good possible side-by-side driving there, down into turn 2 as well. Possible lunge opportunity. It's the slowest corner on the circuit. I think overall, very, very good circuit for these cars. It's going to be exciting to see this race.
So we certainly are indeed. 23 degrees out there, as well, as you can just see there. These are the championship standings. Philip Hammer leads, as he has done since round 1. And does he look like relinquishing it? Well, let's see if he does. He's got 14 points over Nick Vaughan-Roberts. Then Adam Miles is having a fantastic last few weeks, up into 3rd place now. He's actually scored the most points out of the last 2 events. Mambo Lucetta is next, only 37 points adrift, with Kevin Budgeon also not too far away, rounding out the top 5. By the end of today, any driver that is within 115 points of the championship leader, whoever that may be by the end of the day, does have a chance of taking the title at our finale next week or the week after. I can't quite remember, sorry about that. It is 2 weeks time, I think, isn't it? For our final race of the season. That will where is that? I've forgotten where that's it's actually going to be. But make sure you join us for that. We're going to be live with that race, of course, and it is going to be a very exciting one indeed. And it does look like this championship is going to go right down to the wire, especially, I think, with the form of Adam Miles. 2nd place in round 3, and then scoring the most points out of the last 2 rounds. He is a man on form at the moment.
He is very, very much so. Just to give you a heads up, so the next round is at Spa. So that's an absolutely monstrous circuit for these cars. So it's going to be interesting to see what seems to and what's vaguely similar to go-karts driving around that circuit. But again, some good racing, certainly so. Because the cars are so small, it does mean that you can have pretty good side-by-side racing almost all of the time. But as you say, Adam Miles very, very much on form. Philip Hammer, he is still there or thereabouts. Do not count him out. Nick Vaughan-Roberts, obviously, he's just slap bang in the middle of Hammer and Miles. But then Manuel Lucetta as well. We have seen some strong performances through him from the season. But again, you look further down the field, Kevin Budgeon, Christian Miles, Ross Amadio, the top 10, top 11, I think, again, you could just go all the way down, couldn't you, Barber? The grid itself, within the championship, there's a lot of movement to be had here.
It absolutely is. And of course, we'll talk a little bit more later on about it because it is a long race today. We will talk a little bit about the other standings as we go on with the race. 100 minutes today, by the way, in case you are not aware. I will explain that just a little bit. So, 1 hour 40 race here today at Brands Hatch. It was initially supposed to be the VIR race. At round 5 that was supposed to be this longer race. However, first of all, we haven't even done VIR at all. I'm not entirely sure why. I think it was just not preferred by these drivers, and we chose the new circuit, of course, to the iRacing Service Winton instead for that round. But they also decided that for a new circuit, maybe we shouldn't go driving there for such a long time, and so we did the sprint race. Well, not sprint race format, but we did the kind of two same length races, so a race 1 and 2 kind of thing, at the Winton track last time out. So that was good, but we're doing the endurance more style of racing on this occasion at Brands Hatch, and then we're back to the format that we saw at Winton once again for that final race at Spa in 2 weeks' time that we just referenced. So we look forward to that. As I mentioned, you need to be within 115 points heading into that race if you want a shot at winning the title in that race, particularly there. Qualifying, though, about to get underway. The guys have got their own, got their own circuit, if you like. They've got their own little bit of space. It's qualifying where you've got the track to yourself. So everybody is going to have free reign as to where they're going and so on. And we're going to see where these guys qualify. Because, of course, not only is this qualifying positions for the race, which is 100 minutes long, as I mentioned, but also there are points on the line for the top 15 here, going from 15 points for first place all the way down to 1 for 15th position. So not only is it grid position, but also a few points on the line as well.
Yeah, there's some points up for grabs, as you say, within qualifying as well as the race, obviously. And yeah, so, there's an incentive to do well. There's an incentive to practice and to make sure that you get all of the positions. You do your qualifying practice. You do your race prep practice as well. So there is an opportunity there to score some points. If you are a strong qualifier, then you can get some additional points. And again, we've seen how close the championship is. Those qualifying points, as much as we've seen, one qualifying position point perhaps can actually make a significant difference within the championship overall. A couple of others that you can see, this will be a common theme now as everyone just warming their tyres up. So the Skip Barber, it does take a while to get its tyres fully up to temp. That's where you see people that will be flailing around trying to get some heat into the tyres. This will, probably looking at the second or third lap, will be the fastest. But again, people need to hook that lap up, obviously. Still, the 3 classes. So we've got, I believe, we have 2 of the AM drivers here. We have 3 Pro-Ams, and then the remainder are Pros. So there's also the overall championship standings, but then we have the class as well.
Yeah, we'll get into that as the race goes along, of course. This, by the way, I believe, is we're doing the average out of 2 format again, I think, because nobody's got a lap time on the board at all. This really confused us at Hungaroring. We were completely unawares as to what was going on, but I do believe that we have figured out what's going on now. And as even Fabro comes over the line, there we go. We're getting some times on the board now with the average for Lois Amadio, who's the first driver to actually set this lap time. It's a 41.0, the average of his 2 lap times. There you see Forsten Seiver and Efrem Pozati also setting lap times, but they're both Pro-Ams. We're splitting up the categories on the left-hand side just to make everybody's life easier. Or indeed, we can do that and make it overall. So we'll swap between the 2. Meanwhile, Giuseppe Tellini goes to the front with Roger Hooker in second place. This is, of course, as I mentioned, the average qualifying time format. Really confused us in the past, but it is a very good way of actually doing this. It means that, I don't say you can't just get a lucky lap and get into pole position, but you need more than one good lap to place yourself very well in these qualifying sessions.
Yes, you do, absolutely. As you say, we'll be darting through the different formats in terms of the timing tower. At the moment, though, the timing tower, you will see Philip Hammer, he's put his average in there, 139.501. That's a very, very fast average there. 1.1 seconds, currently clear of Giuseppe Tellini. So what you're going to see is the green category. Anyone that has the position number in green on the left-hand side, they are pros. Any in blue are pro-ams. And then the AM categories will be red. So you'll see those come up in a second. So we will keep them overall because that's where the championship positions are going to be. Or in terms of the championship points, they are done in an overall format. But you can then see who is where within their position. Nick Vaughan-Roberts coming down. He is going to set, I believe, his second. And yes, he is just about to come across the line. Where is it going to be for Nick Vaughan-Roberts as he goes across the line? So the average of Roberts is good enough for second, and it's good enough for second by a very, very small margin, though less than 800ths of a second. Adam Miles goes up into third place, respectively. So we've got some times coming on the board now.
We certainly do. We've still got a few to come in as well. Daniele Forgiarini, next driver probably to complete the 2 laps to make up the average. Just coming into the final corner at the moment. I believe is Manuel Lucetta, one of the big names, of course, and trying to win a championship here as well. Let's not forget 4th place, starting the day 37 points behind Philip Hammer, who at the moment is going to extend that championship lead, and indeed goes over the line again here. So will they even maybe improve his average even more, as Forgiarini just come across the line in the 42s, I'm afraid. Not really an improvement, and it's going to be 11th. For Forgiarini there. Chas Weber, even Fabro and Chris Wayne all made mistakes, I believe, or all had off tracks at the very least on their particular lap times, because they have completed 2 laps and they've not gone on the board. So I think there has been mistakes in those. No such thing for Manuel Lucetta, though, by the looks of things, and Sebastian Schultz as well. They're both coming up towards the line at the moment. Lucetta does so now. Where is he going to find himself? He's going to find himself on pole. Nice lap time. I thought Philip Hammers was actually going to be unbeatable, but Manuel Lucetta proving everybody wrong there by taking a pole position. Sebastian Schultz, I'm afraid, has made mistakes on his lap time. He is not going to be able to get on the board there, so that's 4 drivers who haven't set times. But Manuel Lucetta certainly has, and he's done the best out of everybody.
He has indeed. Very, very impressive times. And, okay, at the end of the day, it's 700th of a second. I mean, to be fair, bear in mind that's an average over 2 laps. So that certainly does play it does play a factor into that. I think... Actually, sorry, we've just been told by Adam Miles, sorry, it's 1 lap qualifying with no average. So it is literally just you have 1 lap and that is it. If you outlap your flyer and then you're done. So interesting that makes it, do you know what, that makes it even more difficult. That's why we've seen a couple of drivers without any times. You have that 1 chance, and unfortunately, much like a hyperpole format that you would find in some endurance racing, in endurance series, if you mess it up, that is it. Now with a grid that we have 16 cars, or there will be 16 cars on the grid for today. What that does mean, though, is the gap that you would see, obviously, if you were to, unfortunately, have an incident in your qualifying lap that invalidates it, you would drop down the order, obviously, to the back. There's 16 cars in the field, so you do, it's not like you're going to be P51st or something. So, you still have a little bit of breathing room, I suppose.
Absolutely. It does seem that I'm incapable of getting these qualifying formats right. So there we are. It does look like it's 1 lap qualifying, but who really knows? Philip Hammer, though, tried again on that lap, as I'm sure you saw at home there, but not able to improve. And so Manuel Lucetta looks like he's going to be taking this pole position for the 100 minutes race here at Brands Hatch. Also, a thing to note that's going to be very, very important throughout the race. First of all, these cars actually won't be able to make this race on fuel for the first time this season. At the Charlotte Roval Endurance, they could actually make it on fuel, but the format meant they had to pit. That is the same here. They do have to make 3 stops once again. You can choose when you do them. You could do them on the penultimate lap or the first one. It really doesn't matter. Well, it does matter, but you can do whatever within the rules. But you will need that little bit of fuel during the race. It's not quite like a stop-go like it was at Charlotte. where it literally was just free stop goes to serve throughout the race. They will actually have to do a little bit of a fuel fill up during this race, so that does add an element as well. But that's why I like these endurance races. We're not really going to know until the final 5 minutes quite where everybody is in terms of who's made a stop, who hasn't, where is everybody, how quickly is everybody running, who's in traffic, who isn't. It's all a bit of a minefield to work out.
Yes, it certainly is. Actually, it's a very, very good point indeed. It's as you say, it does add some excitement. Certainly so. Your grid for this race, though, can now be seen on your screen as it comes up. So Lucetta does indeed take that pole. Philip Hammer in second. Nick Vaughan Roberts in P3. Adam Miles fourth. Kevin Budgeon in P5. Giuseppe Tellini in sixth. Roger Hooker seventh. Loris Armadio in P8th. Orson Sofer in ninth. And then we have Efren Bazzati rounding out the top 10. Anders Nielsen 11th. Daniel Fortini in P12. Sebastian Schultz 13th. Ivan Fabro 14th. Chris Wayne 15th. And then Chaz Webber in P16. So, now we come down to it. 100 minutes. There is going to need to be a jump. There's a long way to go, obviously. 100 minutes, it's a fair old chunk of time. Does that mean that drivers can't push? No, it certainly doesn't. We will see drivers push. Absolutely. I think it really is just who gets the jump. You need a good jump. You need a good run down into turn one because you don't want to open yourself up for any possible opportunities to be taken going into turn two. So a clean start, a clean turn one is going to be very, very key here.
It certainly is, as we're going to see running through Paddock Hill Bend, for the first time, and then into Druids at turn two. That is where the action, it is all going to happen there. You can see the drivers now just getting themselves ready, getting themselves on the grid, getting themselves set up, packing this Skip Barber full of fuel. It's going to feel very heavy at the start of this race, possibly the heaviest that it has done all season long. Because, as I mentioned, the car does not make it 100 minutes on fuel. They will need to make a pit stop for fuel, and they will need to make 3 within the rules here once again today. That is why it's going to be such a topsy-turvy race and such an enjoyable one as well, hopefully. Philip Hammer, the final man to get himself ready and on the grid. He has actually extended his championship lead by a point on the score sheet with that qualifying performance. Where is he going to be by the end of this race? The red lights come on for the penultimate round of the Skip Barber World Cup Season 2, and we are underway. Manuel Lucetta getting things underway from the inside line, and he's going to have that one covered off very easily as it goes single file pretty much into turn number 1. Philip Hammer, Nick Vaughan Roberts, Adam Miles all follow in behind. Kevin Budgeon, the top 6 even, all single file at the moment up into Druids, and it's a very, very calm start from everybody, realising that there are 1 hour and 40 minutes on the clock here today, and so there's no point in risking everything into the first few corners. It's almost a single file start for the top 10.
Yes, it is indeed. Oh, there's a spin in the back. Who was that? I think that was Chaz Webber getting a little bit, there was a little bit of contact there. A little bit unfortunate. Another spin for Anders Nielsen. Manages to just about keep it out of the wall, though. Unfortunately, that has it. Dropped him back to last position. So certainly there's a little bit of drama already. The gap, though, from P1 all the way down to P11, realistically, is pretty much nip and tuck. Manuel Lucetta did get a good start, but hasn't been able to actually make any form of gap this early on. Now, what you're probably going to see here, I would imagine, is there is going to be a little bit of slipstreaming here now, at least for as long as possible. And then what I personally feel is going to happen is going to be a mad dash for some positions to be for undercuts, overcuts, and getting those 3 pit stops. They can, as we say, they can be taken at any time. It's really when you do it, because a slipstream is quite valuable in these cars.
Absolutely. But do you want to be involved in a fight like this? Is this too many? And how many cars is ideal, etc., etc.? It is a difficult one to work out. I remember at the first lap at the Charlotte race, at Charlotte Roval all those weeks ago, there were guys jumping in straight away here, and they are once again at Brands Hatch. Webber and Schultz both into the pit lane to make their first stops of the day. Those two did actually even make a bit of contact through turn 3, it was, on the opening lap here during this race. It was right here on lap 1 in this race. So those two were the ones who made initial contact, and then Nielsen just had a bit of a spin on his own, I believe, but early stop from those two, clearly wanting to get out of the traffic early on, making that early stop. We'll see if it pays off for them, but they are out of the traffic. Is that the way you want to be, or do you want to be involved in a battle like this because of all the slipstreaming that goes on? As Philip Hammer goes down the inside into the right-hander, down the hill, bottom of the hill at Hawthorns, into the lead for Philip Hammer. So he was saying he was maybe going to stick behind and just slipstream a little bit, lift off, take things easy, but absolutely wants to take this race by the scruff of the neck and take the lead on lap 2.
He certainly does, doesn't he? He doesn't want to be hanging around at all. The top 5 have broken a bit of a gap. You can see there, the gap between Kevin Budgeon and Roger Hooker, 1.1 seconds now. So that gap has opened up. Whether it's going to continue to sit at that, one will have to wait and see. But once again, lap 2, everyone manages to get through nice and cleanly, especially within this top 5. Again, this will be very much this will be what seems to be the norm now. Everyone, I almost think I'd say that no, Philip Hammer and Manuel Lucetta may want to start battling, or they may continue to battle. It may bunch the pack up. We'll have to wait and see. But that 1.3 second gap between Budgeon and Hooker, let us keep an eye out on that, because there is a bit of a train back there as well, in all honesty. We'll move back to that in a few moments' time. So, a couple of trains that have been that have opened up. This is the second train here, currently being led by Roger Hooker. Then you've got Giuseppe Tellini, Laura Samadio, and then Thorsten Seifert bringing up the rear. These won't stay the same, though. These will ebb, these will flow, and these will change as the race goes on. So we have a fair old ways to go within this race. And as soon as you get the pit stops that come into account, that will just wildly change everything. But as it stands at the moment, 2 little pockets of battles going on here. Another one, though, to keep an eye on is Forgianini, and that, I believe, ahead is Ephraim Pizzati. And it is indeed as well. So Pizzati there and Forgianini, they're sitting there or thereabouts, a couple of tenths away from each other as it stands. But yeah, there is a long way to go here.
There is. There certainly is. Only 3 laps into this race now, about 5 minutes into this one. So, yeah, plenty of time just yet. Two main trains, though, up towards the front of the field. 5 cars in the leading one, 4 cars in the second one. And it looks like the second one is continuing to lose a bit of time. They're mainly in the... well, last time around they were in the high 40s, getting into the high 39s on this occasion. However... in the mid 39s for the leaders, so not really making much ground here at all. Is the second group, Philip Hammer choosing to just lead them through on this occasion on this 4th lap now. So he does just lead them around. This race obviously going to be very, very important in terms of the championship. Not only is it the penultimate race, of course, which does add importance, but the gaps between first and the gaps between first and second in terms of how many points you get. 10 points of a gap there. Second to third is 10 points. Third to fourth is 6 points. Another 6 points to fourth to fifth. You get the idea. There are quite a lot of points up for grabs per position, just purely because it is such a long race today.
Yes, it is. You know, it really puts in perspective, you know, a different driving style, a different mentality when it comes to this racing here. Now, we saw it a little bit, I believe, at Donington. There was quite a lot of slipstreaming, quite a lot of sitting back, waiting patiently, and then all of a sudden it kicked off. We saw a little bit of that at the Charlotte Roval. We also saw a couple of people not actually serving their full pit stops, or their pit stop allocations, which did cost some people some positions. Hopefully we won't see the same today, because that is a little bit of a shame. You know, you go through all the race, do exactly what you need to do, good finishing position, and then for something to come back like that, very, very unfortunate. So yeah, hopefully we won't have anyone that makes a similar error today. Look how many different lines there were going. I think there were 4 different lines in this battle going down into Paddock Hill Bends. Now I think that was Loris Amadio, possibly Giuseppe Tellini's going to go up the inside of Roger Hooker. They're going to go side by side down into turn 3. Loris Amadio nearly lost the back end there. possibly, I thought there was going to be a bit of contact. Roger Hooker manages to stay ahead, though. This may allow Loris Armadio to come up the inside, possibly, of Tellini. No, because Tellini's going to send it straight back. And Roger, that's a big contact. Big contact. I mean, in all honesty, that was... Oh, that's a bit dangerous. Oh, no, that's
dear.
not how you rejoin. Mr. Tellini, unfortunately, that is certainly a suboptimal way to rejoin the circuit. Oh, yeah, there we go. That's the suspension damage. Unfortunately, that will be the end of Tellini's stint within that little group. May even need to get the tow. I doubt he might be able to nurse it back to the pits. Fair play if he does. That was a shame. Unfortunately, though, yeah, that's not the best place, that's not the best way to rejoin the circuit.
No, it isn't, and even Fabro as well is going to be particularly disappointed. That is broken suspension there, though. There's no doubt about that. Going to try and get that back to the pit lane and make one of the mandatory stops, of course, and try and get that car repaired, and then get to the end of the race. Not entirely sure what the amount of laps you have to do to get points for Tellini, but either way, he's going to try and get back into the race. You get the feeling. So there we are. We've also seen, by the way, a pit stop for Anders Nielsen on the fourth lap there. So he's dropped behind everybody now, and he's back into last place. Fabro also comes into the pit lane. He may well drop into last now as well as a result of that. However, yes, we have seen another pit stop for Nielsen. They are starting to happen. Tellini and Fabro are both into the pit lane with damage here, I'm afraid. Unsurprising. As you say, the rejoin there from Tellini is certainly something that's going to be looked at, and Fabro is not going to be very pleased with that at all, because this particular corner made a huge error there to rejoin in the manner that he did, and unfortunately it has caused a bit of an incident. Loris Armadio did actually drop down as a result of that. Roger Hooker kind of got away from, well, I don't say got away from everyone, but got away from a few of the people he was with. Armadio is now in this group with Pizzati, Foggiorini and Chris Wayne as well, who is in this 4-car train. So it is another train. They're just even further now from the lead and missing a couple of the cars that they would have had before because of the events of the last couple of moments.
Yeah, again, I think Chris Wayne's actually just made a move on Foggiorini. I think Foggiorini had a bit of an off. We'll see if we can get possibly a little bit of a replay on that, although I don't think it actually lasted. I don't think it lasted all that long. Actually, no, it did. Chris Wayne did get past Foggiorini. Let's have a quick look at that replay now. Yeah, so Foggiorini just goes a little bit wide. Fair play to Chris Wayne, though, holding it around the outside, managing to keep his foot in, keep the car pinned, and off he goes. So, yeah, I think in all honesty, that was actually a pretty good... that was a pretty good move there, capitalising on a unfortunate incident from a car in front. But obviously, again, one person's loss is another person's gain. So yeah, pockets of battles are starting to open up. This is one of them. So Wilson Sofair is the person that wants to dispatch Foggiorini next. Chaz Weber and Sebastian Scholes have, I believe, actually Scholes has had a moment off circuit. So we'll see if we can get a replay of that. Yeah, there's quite a few battles kicking off, actually.
There certainly is. Seeing especially those in the midfield. The one up front is not actually changing in terms of positions too much, but there is a fair amount going on a little bit further back here. Can't forget as well, Torsten Seifert is now gaining here, the last of the cars not to have made a stop, as in he is 11th out of 11 cars who haven't stopped yet, if you see what I mean. The rest behind all have made one stop already in this race. But Seifert was, of course, involved in a bit of an incident that's dropped him down. As we look at that incident for Sebastian Schultz at turn 1, that is why he has dropped behind Chaz Weber and he's down into 12th place on the 13th even. I'll get it right eventually. Meanwhile, Pizzati under a bit of pressure from Loris Armadio coming down in towards turn number 1. Inside line, and it's a fairly easy move. Not expecting to see people fighting absolutely hell for leather here so early on in the race. Although, then again, earlier on we did see that with Tellini and Seifert, I think it was, who was going side by side with on the corner onto the Grand Prix circuit. around the back of the circuit there, and of course they both spun around. I don't know what happened to Tellini after that, so some people electing to battle hard, but really a lot of people, especially if you've got your head screwed on here, I think it's a better idea to just wait a little bit before really battling too hard.
Yeah, that's what I would do personally. I would hold back. I would try and take stock of the situation and assess it. I wouldn't necessarily... The last thing you want to do, you don't want to jump to anything happening. You don't want to jump to a conclusion or a possible theory in terms of the strategy you want to run. You can have ideas, certainly, but you don't necessarily want to commit. You want to try and keep your options open for as long as you possibly can, and that obviously dictates on... in this instance, obviously, with this endurance format, where would you pit? What lap would you pit? And all those sort of factors as well has to come into play. But Amadio is certainly pulling away from Pizzati at quite a rate of knots. Cypher did actually get past Forgiadini, I believe, so that's going down to turn 1. Again, pretty straightforward move.
Very nice move indeed, as Kevin Budgin comes into the pit lane, the first of the drivers from the front of the field to come in. However, I fear for his sake he's going to find himself in a lot of traffic here, and not the kind he wanted at all. He was in traffic before, of course, but he's going to find himself in even more now, and there's Torsten Cypher. Obviously, these guys haven't even pitted yet. This is how far the leaders are getting ahead of the guys at the back already. But Kevin Budgin has taken the early gamble, and I don't think that has paid off at all, finding himself in this much traffic.
Yes, very, very true. And, you know, as you say, you want clean track. You want as much clean track as you can possibly get at any one time. Even if you are slipstreaming people and they're around your pace, it is more beneficial. Or can be more beneficial in certain ways. But yeah, certainly not the positioning that I think Budgin was going to want to be in from an optimal perspective. But that is the case. All he needs now is crack on and obviously make the most of the situation. As he goes down through that final complex, such a the fastest part of the circuit around this complex here as we go through Sheen Curve. And use all of the track available, apps, and a little bit more actually as well. You can see the difference in speed, can't you? See how much more speed that Budgin's able to carry through. A little bit of understeer there. Maybe a little bit too late on that turn in. Just push the car out a tiny, tiny bit too wide. And again, last corner. You can see again, actually, well, look at that. Budgin's coming in, so he's decided. Actually, to be fair, it's not a bad shout. He's decided
realised. Exactly.
Yeah.
He's possibly realised his mistake. Sorry, he's possibly realised his mistake, and he's almost correcting it, if you like, with this.
Well, yeah, exactly. This is the same thing I was going to say.
Oh.
Obviously, did he miss his pit box? May have missed his pit box ever so slightly there. Yes, so what's happening, I would imagine, there is he wants some clean air. May as well pit again. No penalty for it. You can pit again whenever you want. So he, as you say, may have righted that initial wrong. But we will have to see how that pays out. Bear in mind, 15 minutes have gone. So already 60 minutes into this race. Still a fair ways to go. And what this does mean, in all honesty, is that, unfortunately, we're not really going to know how this is going to pay off until the likes of Miles, Raw, Roberts, Lucchetta, etc. have pitted. And that could be a fair while. It
could. This is why it's so interesting, these races, because we are yet to work out what is going to happen until the very, very end. Kevin Budgie, by the way, didn't actually lose any more places making that second stop of the race. So that's worked out perfectly for him. He's got ahead of Schultz and Weber, who are battling at the moment over a 12th place in the standings. He's 4.5 seconds in front. He's got 16 seconds to the guys in front. So I reckon he might catch them before too long, if I'm honest, especially given the way these guys are battling right now, because these are the ones he's going to catch at first, of course. Is there a lap car in here? Because I was battling, and there Chris Rain and Torsten Cypher are battling, but there's a third car involved here. So who is that? Oh, sorry, that's Forgiarini in the background there. Apologies for that. He's there. So this is a free car battle at the moment over 8th position. Chris Rain currently leading it, but these are the guys that Kevin Budgie did not want to get stuck behind. I have a feeling, though, the gap's only 17 seconds. I have a feeling he's going to get stuck behind them again, unless they pit before he gets there.
Well, it's a good point. It's a good point to keep note of. We'll have to keep an eye on this. Bear in mind, Kevin Budgeon does have so he does have one more stop to do, so he can use that to his advantage if he wants to as well. So, he's got a little bit of a buffer there if need be. A couple of other small little replays, but you can see if we can catch a replay for you, of which one of them was Pizzati having a small off. This is going down into, that's a big Simon. Look at that Tokyo drift style. Fair play indeed, Mr. Pizzati. That is I'll watch that again. Actually, that was fantastic to watch. I mean, in terms of actually losing the car, is it just a wheel on the grass? I think
so.
It is just a wheel on the grass. But I mean, kudos for keeping it absolutely foot to the floor, kept it planted, and ultimately that saved him from spinning. I reckon.
It probably did. He indeed had his wheels on the grass through this corner as well. Afterwards, he didn't learn. but anyway, it was very entertaining. As we go up front now to the leading 4. Here they are, missing Kevin Budgeon now. It was the leading 5. Now it's down to 4. The problem that Budgeon has with that, you mentioned there, if he gets to the back of those guys, then he could just pit again because he does have one more stop to make. The problem is he will have to hope that that's within the pit window to actually make it to the end of the race. Let's not forget, these guys on fuel cannot just do what you like. They will have to do a little bit of fueling in this car. I'm not entirely sure. Benny Simonson, I'm not sure if you're aware of how, let me say this first. Benny Simonson says that to burn through 19 litres of fuel take you about 60 minutes. I'm not sure how big these fuel tanks are. Are they 19 litres? Maybe bigger? I don't know. But they certainly can't be, up to 40 litres because then they'd be able to do the whole thing. So I'm not entirely sure how big the fuel tanks actually are, whether whether they are actually 19 litres, as Benny said there, or whether they are just that little bit bigger. However, Kevin Budgeon will have to just watch that to make sure he does make it to the end of the race actually on fuel. That's the thing, one difference from the Charlotte race. He could literally pit whenever and make it to the end. I mean, some drivers have finished their 3 stops within 10 minutes or so and then just decided to carry on that way. So, because they could do that. That's not going to happen here, and it evidently is not happening here today.
Indeed, very, very true. I wonder. So this is actually. I don't know about you, but this is flying by for me. This this race. 20 minutes have already gone. We do have another hour and 20 minutes left to go for this race. But Lucetta, I've noticed, and I don't know, Hammer has started to pull a little bit of a gap. It's not a lot, it's about half a second. But that does certainly indicate that, especially at this stage of the race anyway, Philip Hammer is looking to be very, very comfortable because, these cars have absolutely no power. Momentum conservation is everything, slipstream, tow, and all that jazz. Hammer doesn't have any of that. He doesn't have a tow. He doesn't have anyone in front of him drafting him along, whereas everyone behind him does, and yet he still managed to pull that half a second out. It's interesting, and it certainly shows that Philip Hammer is confident in the car at this stage of the race, being only 13 laps in. I did, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe I just saw Pizzati in the pit lane.
You did?
And yes, indeed. So the third driver, in terms of positioning for, you can see that obviously the full 16 on the grid. So you can see that Thorsten Seifert, I mean, it's just, again, a world law unto themselves when it comes to the Pro-Am. Ivan Fabro is in P13, although, men saying that, Fabro has pitted yet, so has Pizzati, obviously, but Seifert has not. And I probably would be doing what I would be doing with him, actually, is just saving to the last possible moment and then sort of cramming your pit stops in. It just allows me a little bit more freedom for which I can then take. It sounds like a bit rushed at the end, but something like that just seems to work for me. I have more control over what goes on earlier in the stages of the race.
In terms of pro-am in the standings, Christopher Miles has 330 points and is leading those standings, but he's not here today, and that is going to cost him quite dearly because Yvonne Fabro is only 55 points behind him. Now, if Fabro can finish, this is difficult now. If Fabro can finish in the top 7 today, then he will overtake Christopher Miles. That's in the top 7 in the overall standings, by the way, not top 7 in Pro-Am, because you do score points as an overall. Everybody scores points from the same point system. You don't suddenly get, you don't go back to 100 points for winning Pro-Am. You get wherever you finished in the overall. So I don't think Fabro's quite going to gain enough points to do that, but he is going to make it mighty close for the final race. Pizzati as well, and Seifert, if they all have good races here, we could have a 4-way fight for the Pro-Am win in the final race at Spa in 2 weeks' time. So that is an exciting prospect indeed. One thing to note, though, about that Pro-Am battle, Torsten Seifert has not been into the pit lane yet, whereas the other two have made their first stops of the day. So that is slightly contributing to the skewed order that we're seeing at the moment, although I do agree that Seifert is probably the fastest of the three and possibly favourite to win today. But let's see as we continue to look at the leaders and go back to Torsten Seifert, who's just leading the train of his own. Chris Rain and Daniele Forgiarini closing in and following on behind. And a little bit of a battle further down with Giuseppe Tellini and Anders Nielsen. Tellini, of course, probably on pace alone, doesn't deserve to be back here, and so is fighting his way back through the field. Into the final corner. Tellini, will he be able to make this move into 15th position? He certainly does, and Anders Nielsen is demoted to last place. Tellini recovers well from the off that he had earlier and the suspension damage that he had to crawl back to the pit lane with not so long ago. Makes his way up into the 15th place. Where can he get to by the end of this race? He's got 11 seconds up to Pizzati in the next position up in front. Fastest lap of the race from overall last time around from Nick Vaughan-Roberts as they come up towards the line once again to complete a quarter of this race. 25 minutes gone already in this one, which is a quarter of this one. Remarkable, this race is going by quite so quickly. It's been a very enjoyable one so far, and the tension is kind of building because we have no idea really where the likes of Kevin Budgeon are going to find themselves when all of these pit stops cycle themselves out. Where are the top four going to be in relation to Kevin Budgeon once all this cycles out? And once they've made 2 stops, because of course Budgeon has made those 2, the front 4 at the moment, who he was with before, haven't even made 1 yet.
Indeed, yes. So this is where what I said, being left in the dark here to a certain degree, anyway, is good for us because it adds a level of suspense. It adds a level of suspense for the spectators. It also adds a level of suspense for us, naturally, which again, certainly something that we want. Why would you not want that? You want to make everything as exciting as you possibly can. So, yet the top 9 have yet to pit, and then from P10. Down to P16, everyone else has pitted at least once, but the only exception to that rule is Kevin Budgeon, who has pitted twice. It was a little bit wide there for Chris Way. He was getting a little bit too close to the outside of the track, too close to comfort for me. Back up to the leading train. Nick Vaughan-Roberts sitting there in 3rd place, so he has secured at this stage of the race a podium position. Adam Miles sitting there in P4 as well. So we can ride on board with Adam Miles. Just want to have a quick listen to see if he is lifting coasting or anything similar to that. Whoa! Oh. Wow, what a moment. I'm glad we just went onto the roll bar as soon as that happened. But fair play to Adam Miles. You could see what initially looked like just a massive amount of understeer. Was that manually Chettard? I think it was just taking the lead back from Philip Hammer. It was indeed. We'll see if we can get a replay of that from the TV cam. Did look like a fair old send there down into Paddock Hill Bend, but ultimately managed to keep it stick. This is a good opportunity for Nick Vaughan-Roberts to start pressuring Philip Hammer a little bit. Alternatively, though, this is just an opportunity to save even more fuel if both Lucetta and Hammer are fighting. So if you're Nick Vaughan-Roberts or Adam Miles, you could use this to your advantage, maybe in a different way.
Absolutely. It did look like it was just a late breaking move really into turn number 1. Philip Hammer wasn't really contesting it. Don't often see too many moves here, but where else are you going to do it here at this circuit? Hammer, see there, I think lifted off a little bit once he saw Lucetta's intent to come down the inside there. Decided that this was not for me anymore. I'm going to stuck in now and save a bit of fuel, maybe even in the slipstream right now. The other problem I've just thought of as well for Kevin Budgeon is the fact that he's going to be running with quite a heavy car throughout today's race. I don't think anybody's put any fuel in just yet. Tolini might have done, and Pizzati did have a very long stop as well, so those two might have done, and maybe Chaz Webber as well. But really, for most of these drivers, they've not put much fuel in at all, if any. He's going to have to make this, if he just make an early third stop, he will have a very heavy car to go through the rest of the race with. If these guys run long, indeed the front four run long, and they really run the tank dry before making their final stop of the race, then they will have a lighter car throughout the race. And given Kevin Budgeon is basically trying to match these guys while on his own, he will struggle with that just a little bit. The guys up front are in the low to mid 38s. Budgeon is more consistently in the high 38s at the moment. I think Budgeon could find himself a few seconds off the back of this group, the front group before, when those make the first two pit stops of the day, which of course we are waiting for, and we might be waiting for some time.
Indeed, as you say, we could be waiting. In theory, we could be waiting right up until the last possible moment, which again will certainly add some suspense for us. But at the same time, it's always nice to know there's a fine balance. Actually, I think we find there's a fine balance between the two. It's a fine balance between knowing the information, knowing all the information, and for it then to be a little bit of a detriment by knowing the information. There is a fine line to tread. That was, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that was that for Giurini? No, it wasn't. It was actually Chris Wayne that had a very, very big moment. Big off track going down into turn 3, Graham Hill Bend. You could just see the front end just did not pick up. It just wanted to sail away to the outskirts of the circuit. And while we've got a bit of breathing room, let's have a quick look at that here, shall we? So as you go through down into Graham Hill, again, the front end just does not bite whatsoever. Fair play, though, because I think that was Forgiani actually followed Chris Wayne through down into that same line. Not as deep, but did follow almost to the same, like just a carbon copy there. But the Cypher, Wayne, and Forgiani, this little battle here maintains. It doesn't actually change. I wonder how hard these drivers are pushing, actually.
I'm wondering. I think everybody's pushing pretty hard at this stage. Well, it is an endurance race, so to speak, in the context of this Skip Barber World Cup. It is not that long of a... it's only the distance of maybe slightly the long end of an F1 race, maybe. 1 hour 40. You might see an F1 race go on for that long. You don't see people backing off during those, for example. In terms of proper endurance racing, that I know me and you have done a bit of this weekend, Dan. It's not 1 hour 40, not a very long time. So I think people are going to be pushing as hard as possible. And of course, these tyres can stand up to a lot of punishment. We're not going to expect to see any tyre changes throughout today. They're going to be staying on the same tyres throughout this race, despite its length. Is only going to be a drop of fuel, a few litres of fuel that they need to get to the end of this race in terms of making it on that fuel. So I think these guys are pushing pretty hard at this stage, and it's the 15-second gap that this, or 16-second gap now, that these four have got over the likes of Roger Hooker behind, Loris Amadio, etc. behind. I think that shows that these guys are just not waiting around for anybody. Just going for it, even with such a long time to go.
Well, as you say, that's the interesting thing there, isn't it? It's how aggressive some drivers have been. Obviously, Philip Hamber was pushing, almost from the word go. I think after about the 4th or 5th lap, that was it. It was just push, tried to get by. Lucetta held back a little bit, just to regain composure, etc., etc. Then started attacking again and ultimately retook the position. So I wonder if this is going to be a bit of a leapfrog as well, perhaps. Maybe the leapfrogging is going to be a bit of, just pushing the car enough, making a move, dropping back. I don't know. Again, there's lots of different ways they could go out. This is also a very, very different circuit from Charlotte Roval. Charlotte Roval is the closest we have in terms of a endurance style. In terms of the track, they share some similarities, they share some differences. Overall, though, there could be a slightly different tactic the drivers are going to use.
Yeah, they share a lot of differences. There's no doubt about that. A lot of high-speed corners here, of course. Almost none at the Charlotte Roval. Not even the chicane that they used to have is high speed anymore. And the back straight, they've... well, some would say they fixed that. I would say they've just made it more sensible. Really, it was quite amusing, the first iteration of that chicane that they had, but it did ruin cars and cost a lot of money. So I can understand why they would not keep that any longer. We did also, I don't know if you mentioned it, but Loris Amadio did come into the pit lane there. On lap 19. Now Kevin Budgeon is not too far behind him and will want to make light work of the Italian to get himself through. On his strategy, he needs to make his way through these cars very quickly. I think he would have been hoping that Amadio just waited a couple of more laps so that he could have undercut him further and then got through and not have to negotiate this. This is the problem. I do commend Kevin Budgeon for doing something a little bit different to the rest of the guys in the front group, but at the moment, it doesn't look to me as if it's paying off. Amadio goes a bit wide there as Chris Wayne comes into the pit lane. These two are both going to take him, and Budgeon might even take this position as well. The inside line is open, the door is open, and Budgeon's going to kick the door down here and go through. I think down the inside into turn one, he does make that move stick, but the damage is done. That will have cost him a little bit of time.
As you say, it will cost him a little bit of time, and again, it doesn't seem to be... well, at this moment, maybe Kevin knows something that we don't, but just doesn't seem to be working in favour, even though a position was gained. And already you can see, actually, I think the gap is already starting to open. It's probably a couple of tenths now. It was 1.4. Yeah, it's half a second now. So the gap is certainly opening up. So I think that's, budging comfortably with that position. Next person up in his sights is Forgiardini, 8.2 seconds up the road. Pace-wise, interestingly enough, both Cypher and Forgiardini, very, very similar lap times to Kevin Budgeon. Although, actually, just noticing the last couple of laps, or the last lap at least for Forgiardini and Budgeon, were just a little bit slower. So we have a 138.97 for Cypher, Forgiardini 139.08, and then a 138.42. Actually, sorry, 138.45 for Kevin Budgeon last lap. So differences, obviously, in terms of positioning when you're battling, etc., etc. But I think Kevin Budgeon it doesn't seem to be like it's going to work at the moment. But again, Budgeon may know something that we don't at.
So into the pit lane for Loris Amadio to become the second driver to take his second stop of the day, and that's 2 pit stops in 2 laps, isn't it? As Forgiarini's off the road here somewhere, and he's staying off the road complete. Oh, at turn one he's had a problem. There he is, getting going again. What has happened to Giangeli Forgiarini at turn number 1? Clearly had it off. I don't think has hit the barrier, but certainly has gone off the road. Kevin Budgeon goes up to 7th place. Forgiarini's down to 8th after an incident there. Wasn't really involved in a fight, was just in his own world, in his own race. Just trying to get the lap times in and get the pace going, of course, but doesn't look like it's ended too well for Forgiarini. Here's a replay of Philip Hammer, I should say, taking the lead ahead of Manuel Lucetta. We saw, well, we didn't see, but we did know a few moments ago that Hammer was back in the lead, although he's not again now, because he's the first of the front 4, the second of the front 5 we used to have, who's come into the pit lane. Anders Nielsen having trouble at turn 1. That might be pretty much what Forgiarini did.
Well, let's find out. Let's see. Here is the replay coming up now. And yeah, carbon copy. Literally about as identical as you can get. Oh. The only difference is Forgiarini went a little bit deeper down into the inside of turn. Well, I've stood there actually a couple of times on the inside, pretty much where Forgiarini had that spin there. And certainly if the skip bubble was going my way, I'd be slightly concerned. Because there's only a sort of a flimsy, what looks to be a flimsy little catch fence on the inside there. But Forgiarini does manage to stay out of the barrier, which is the main thing, because what that does mean is you can just crack on. You don't have to really worry. Tyres obviously will be a little bit warmer, may just be a little bit too hot, wait for them to cool down. But again, with the tyre compounds of these, which are pretty much road-going tyres, shouldn't be the end of the world. As you were saying, yes, Philip Hammer, first of the top drivers to have pitted. And Kevin Budgeon, having a look at where both of them are out on circuit, it's interesting to note. So the gap we're looking at, we need to have one of the top four, we need to have one of the top four do 2 pit stops. I think that's going to be the key thing we need.
We certainly do, and we're going to have to wait a little bit while longer. We've not had to wait very long though for Manuel Lucetta to come into the pit lane and get going once again. What is the difference going to be between Hammer and Lucetta? Lucetta makes his way out of the pit lane now. Hammer approaches him and goes right round the outside. Again, goes side by side even through turn number 1. This could be for a net race lead if the two of them don't cost each other too much time. Lucetta realises that and makes sure he takes this race by the scruff of the neck down the inside into Druids, and he does make that move on Philip Hammer. Now we do have 2 pairs in the top 4 battling this one out, nearly 40 minutes into this 1 hour 40 race. It's been really, really interesting so far, I have to say. Daniele Fulgerini also into the pit lane here to make his first stop of the day. Now we're only waiting for Nick Vaughan-Roberts, Adam Miles and Torsten Seifer to make their first pit stops of the day. But the top 4 have got such a lead over the rest, they can actually afford to make pit stops and still come out inside the top 4. That's how quick they've been so far, as Philip Hammer proves again, overtaking into Hawthorns around the outside of Lucetta. These passes are going to get a lot more argued over in an hour's time.
Well, yes, that's the other thing, isn't it? That's the thing to note, is there's a little bit of aggression now when it comes to overtakes. We'll wait till it comes to those final 5 minutes. All your pit stops have been completed. You can see that the car ahead is only a couple of tenths away. All of a sudden, red mist descends. And then before you know it, people are sending this stuff on each other left, right, and centre. I'm excited for that. I can't wait. And I'm sure everyone else watching that is going to be ready. Is excited to see the fireworks that will inevitably fly. Because again, there is more. There's more at stake. There is more on the line. The further you go into the championship, this being the second to last round, the more that these positions are crucial. The more they can gain, ultimately, the more they can lose you. But that's all part and parcel of it. Adam Miles and Nick Vaughan-Roberts right at the very front of the field. Neither of them have chosen to pit. What I would imagine, I will put money on. I was going to put money on it actually, but I'm going to suggest, or I'm going to take an educated guess, that Adam Miles will want to pit either the same lap and he'll just dart into the pits as well, or the lap after Nick Vaughan-Roberts. Yeah. I can't see him wanting to just carry on at this point, because you've got a reference. You have Nick Vaughan-Roberts there as a reference. You know he's fast. He has got pace round here. In all honesty, that's what I would probably be wanting to do at this point.
Yeah, I do agree. By the way, you can see there Lewis Amadio was DNF'd from the race by the looks of things. I think he's disconnected because he was out on the circuit at the time. And if he had a crash, then we would firstly know about it. But he also would have returned to the pit lane, of which he has not done. He's just still out there on the circuit according to our timing. There's Pizzati running a little bit wide through Hawthorns there, pushing the boat out, pushing the boundaries. He was was he the driver who was drifting his way through the second last corner earlier? I think it was.
It was.
So he's continuing on with that form, just having a bit of fun out there at the moment. To be fair, that is the way you have to drive these Skip Barbers. As we go on board with Adam Miles here, it's not exactly smooth kind of high downforce prototype driving, is it? That you would see at Le Mans. It is very much different. It's more soaring at the wheel, oversteer, trying to catch slides and all that kind of thing. Some would say more entertaining, controversial. But it's just the way you have to drive these cars, really. The rear end gets kicked out on the regular, really, and that's the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, as you say, interesting enough that you were saying, yes, you couldn't probably get further from an LMP sort of driving style, a prototype driving style. This would be more akin to rallycross, depending on, with the amount of inputs that you need, especially when it comes to, when you're pressuring, you're battling, you're pushing. It's all very, very, you can just see there's micro corrections going down. You just see a few micro corrections there for Adam Miles going into Hawthorn. But again, this is where the adjustments come in. You can see there again, just fighting the car, keeping it absolutely pinned. Bear in mind, these cars don't have any real power to have a significant spin on throttle, especially when you go through a fast corner. So you can pretty much just keep the car nailed. Again, you see there, a little bit of initial correction, and then you load the front of the car up and then try and bring the car in. Adam Miles is looking fast here. You mentioned this on the. You mentioned this before we got started. Ewan, that Adam Miles was looking fast, and to be honest, this is certainly not an exception today.
Oh, he's been in great form in this race. He scored the most. I've mentioned this already, but in case you weren't with us earlier on, he scored the most points out of any of the drivers over the last 2 races. He's gained points on Philip Hammer in the last 3 rounds. And given Hammer is leading this championship, that is very helpful for him indeed. Miles started the day 26 points adrift from Hammer. Lost a couple of points from that qualifying performance there, but not too much, as Kevin Budgeon now once again finds himself in traffic. All of these cars that he's having to overtake continually costing him time. Roger Hooker has made 1 pit stop in this race, Budgeon having made 2, so it's not going to matter too much in terms of net position, and Hooker's not going to fight it too much. But once again, I say it again, the damage has already been done by the fact he's had to follow that car for a couple of corners. He will have lost that little bit of time, and I think Budgeon is going to find himself very lonely in 5th place when this all shakes out.
It's a shame if that were to be the case. But as you say, it's a gamble. It's a gamble that's worth trying. Unfortunately, just didn't quite. It just doesn't seem to be paying off. Does that mean it won't pay off? No, absolutely not. There's so many different ways. There's so many different things that can happen here at the moment. It's simply just going to be a case of as the race starts to develop, we'll see where everyone is. The main thing we want to see is, bear in mind, Budgeon, Nielsen and Armadi are the only 3 drivers to have done 3 stops, of which Kevin Budgeon is the highest placed driver of those. As soon as we get the top 4 into a second pit stop, then we'll have a much clearer understanding. Of pace, when people obviously are going to be pitting, etc., etc. So that would imagine, I would imagine that would come with. I'm going to guess the hour mark is when people are going to start deciding they want to take their second pit stop.
Well, let's see. If I was doing it, I have to say, well, my logical brain tells me to just split the race into quarters and then make your 3 pit stops in that way, which will be on every 25 minutes. So 25 minutes in at the halfway stage, 50 minutes, and then with 25 to go. However, that's not always the best thing to do. It just depends where you are out on circuit. For example, Kevin Budgeon, I don't think at the start of the day will have planned to have made his first pit stop, first 2 stops within 20 minutes, as he ended up doing. But he also didn't plan to come out right behind a battling trio of cars that he really would rather not be a part of. So he was like, well, I've kind of forced myself into making my second stop here after a second stint of only 1 lap. So it all depends where you are out there on the circuit as well, as we see Chris Wayne lose a place to Sebastian Schultz there. Both of those having made 1 stop. Also, Roger Hooker, Chaz Webber going the other way, is also involved in that fight, also having made 1 stop. The 3 of them battling over positions that actually will matter because they are on the same strategy-ish. So it is certainly one to keep an eye on. Though Chris Wayne does look like he's dropping through that group just for the moment. We go on board with him now. Look at the rear end of the AM class leader, Chaz Webber. The other AM driver, by the way, Anders Nielsen, one of 2 drivers, including along with Kevin Budgeon, to have made 2 stops so far in this race. And that's why he is so far off the back of the field. Just to update you on the AM Championship, by the way, we've not spoken about it so far, but Nicola Tozzato still leading at that championship. Chaz Webber only 40 points behind coming into today, and so needs a strong-ish result, and it will be, I reckon, almost wherever he finishes. Certainly a 9th place here would allow him to take the championship lead heading into the final race. Hopefully we can get Tozzato on the grid for the final round, and we can have a nice AM Championship fight as well, as we see Kevin Budgeon and Roger Hooker coming in at the same time. Bit of a surprise to see those 2 coming in together, especially for Roger Hooker there, but Kevin Budgeon, almost exactly before the halfway mark, makes his final pit stop of the day. He's going to fill up that tank to make sure he can get it to the end. He's going to fill it up with about 55 minutes worth of fuel. That's why his pit stop is taking a little while now. it looks like Roger Hooker is also filling that car up at the moment because he knows that he can make it to the end from here. And so they're taking the pain now. However, Kevin Budgeon is going to come out, not only maybe he come out in traffic, but he'll also come out with a heavier car compared to the top 4, and it will remain that way until they make their final pit stops of the day in those front 4 cars.
Yes, pit stops, pit stops, pit stops. There's a lot of things to consider there. Kevin Budgeon has now finished his 3 stops. That is it. Done and dusted. Doesn't need to worry about that at all for the next 53 minutes, or 52 minutes even. That I should say. So yeah, I think, with regards to this pit stop window, I am intrigued as to why, and maybe we'll have a catch up with Kevin a little bit later on today. I wonder why he's decided that he wants to tackle the pit stop so early. It's interesting. Could it simply be just wanting to get rid of it early and just get them done? That way you can head down, crack on, and that's that. It's interesting. Perhaps also as well, something we didn't think about. Is there any variety in temperature that could be causing that? Is the track temperature getting a little bit hotter? I mean, I can't see that having an effect on these cars at all, in all honesty. But I don't drive these cars all that often, so I could be wrong.
Yeah, we're not really sure. Not sure at all as Sebastian Schultz comes in to make his second stop of the day, along with Chris Rain, who has not long made his first stop, actually. So that's quite 2 pit stops in quite short succession there for Wayne. But either way, as long as you get the 3 of them done, it's absolutely fine. Yeah, Budgeon, I'm a bit surprised why Roger Hooker has decided to fill up it. I know he can make it to the end from there, but he could have waited a little bit and then done it at his final pit stop, because then he would have had a lighter car for longer in the race. But anyway, he's done it now. So as I say, he's done it now. So he'll have to come down pit lane one more time, but will not have to take on any more fuel. It's also fuel for Schultz and Wayne, and Nick Vaughan Roberts comes into the pit lane. We'll see if your prediction about Adam Miles is indeed correct about coming in a lap afterwards. I think he should, even if he does or not here today. But let's see as Sebastian Schultz makes his way out of the pit lane. Was that Forgerini just going through on him there, and Chris Wayne not too far behind.
Indeed. So yeah, personally, that's what I would do. If I was Adam, I would be pitting now, because yes, you do have an opportunity when it comes to actually. No, yeah, I tell you what, I was just about to say I might not, because the gap between Philip Hammer and Manuel Legess is about 0.3 per second. Nick Vaughan Roberts is still in the pit lane, and he's made his first stop, and he's shot quite a significant amount of time, actually, interesting enough. Bear in mind, everyone else has, Hannah and Legessa have stopped once as well.
Oh.
So Nick Vaughan Roberts has lost quite a lot. My guess would be actually that he's probably taking the fuel now. That would, I'd assume, be as to why.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I'm wondering now, we haven't actually watched anybody go in the pit lane. Are these guys taking tyres because this is a 100-minute race? Have they decided that maybe actually taking a tyre change is ideal? Because, as I said there, Roger Hooker taking fuel at that particular stop does not make sense. Nick Vaughan Roberts taking fuel at that stop makes even less sense. Are these guys taking tyres throughout their pit stops at roughly the halfway mark here? Adam Miles is coming into the pit lane. I wonder if we can just see if he is taking tyres here or not. We'll first of all see his pit stop time, of course, but does this car go up on the jacks on some form of stops? Firmly on the ground there. As Philip Hammer also comes in to make his second stop of the day. This is also a long stop for Adam Miles, though. So this is the 30-second stop for Adam Miles. His car's not gone up on the jacks, has it? This is not a tyre change. They just literally are taking the fuel at the halfway mark. I do wonder if these guys are a little bit fuel limited. Is that there might be quite a small window in which I thought the window was quite wide, in which they could actually make their fuel fill up. Maybe the window for them to actually get to the end of the race with that fuel, maybe it's not actually that wide, or not nowhere near as wide as I think it is. As Nick Vaughan Roberts re-overtakes Adam Miles there and actually puts a few car limps into him there.
Indeed, yeah, gaps, what, 7/10 of a second now? So the two smallest gaps we do have are... I thought there was actually going to be a possible battle going on here. This is between Sebastian Schulz and Daniele Forgieri, just up ahead. A couple of tenths separates those two. Cypher, Fabro and Weber are all in the pit lane as well. And these are going in for their second pit stops this time out. But yeah, this is the closest battle we have on track now. Adam Miles and Nick Vaughan Roberts. The gap has opened up to the second. So certainly played into the hands of Nick Vaughan Roberts. That is Sebastian Schulz on the inside of the last corner. Surtees down into for this particular lap number 31. That was. And Sebastian Schulz has just come. Actually, no, that is. Someone has just come out. I'm sure someone just came out of the pit lane there. Was that Chaz Weber, I believe, that came out of the pit lane to join the rear of that? To join the rear of this battle.
Let's see. Yes, actually, yes, he has just come out of the pit lane. Tussauds Cypher has also done that. Come out of the pit lane and rejoin the circuit, but not in this battle. That was shots going very wide, and Forgieri and Weber go straight through. Got him in that battle for 10th place. Not too far behind these guys. Chris Wayne as well. You saw in the back of some of those camera shots as Nick Vaughan Roberts and Adam Miles retake the 1 and 2, because Manuel Lucetta now taking his fuel fill just past the halfway mark. Where is Philip Hammer going to be in relation to him? I think behind Lucetta there, as Pizzati and Tolini fight it out. Tolini hasn't been in since lap 5, by the way. So we're still waiting on him to make a couple of pit stops in this race, including a longer one for fuel in this race, although he might be able to go a little bit longer, because he might have put a little bit in while he was repairing his suspension earlier on. I know it was only a 10-second stop. There might have been a fast repair in that. I don't know if these guys actually get one, but it certainly wasn't a long stop considering the damage that Tolini had. He's now up into 5th place. One of the great recovery drives from Giuseppe Tolini today.
It is absolutely, as you say. You know, all things considered, I didn't think I'd be saying this for Tolini at this moment. He has only pitted once. Bear in mind, a couple of drivers have pitted twice or 3 times, that being Roger Hooker, Kevin Budgin as well, Sebastian Schulz, Chris Wayne. So a couple of drivers yet to make their second pit stop, admittedly. Let's take that into consideration. But as it stands, though, as you say, Giuseppe Tolini, very, very good recovery drive indeed as it stands. Long way to go, though. Ivan Fabro jumps the currently P14 of Chaz Weber. That's it. Apologies, my mind for some reason went blank there. Although the gap's about 7/10 of a second, probably will open up, I would imagine, to about a second by the end of this lap. We'll see how that materialises. And then back a little bit further up the field. Forgieri versus Schulz. They're going to go down to Hawthorne, possibly side by side. That's going to be very brave. No, they do not. And that is Sebastian Schulz taking that position. And that is the battle for P10.
Yes, and it goes the way of Schulz. Chris Wayne also closing in on those guys. Speaking of closing in, Kevin Budgin is certainly doing that to Tolini and Pizzati, who we were watching not so long ago. The top 6 currently being made up of 3 pairs as things stand, all quite far apart. As unfortunately, I bring the news that Anders Nielsen has also retired from this race in the pit lane now. So a very long stop. I wonder if he had actually damage, maybe. I don't think so, but he's just retired in that 15th position. So becomes our second retirement of the race so far. Really is flying by, though. Less than 45 minutes to go here in this race, and we're still no closer really to really knowing who is going to be winning this race at all. Everybody other than Tolini, Pizzati has made their long stop during this race, of course, which they have to do to get the fuel in the car to get to the end of the race. So everybody's done that, but not everybody has made the same amount of pit stops. The top 2 have both made 1. Vaughan Roberts and Miles, 1 stop. Lucetta and Hammer, 2. Tolini and Pizzati, 1 also. Budgin has done 3. He's ahead of Hooker, who's done 2. Then Cypher has only done 1. And Schulz, 2. Forgieri, 1. Chris Wayne, 2. Along with Ivan Fabro. And then Chaz Weber there with a one lap third stint in this race. Has done his 3rd stop as well. And he's now on the back of Fabro in that battle a long way down. But these are the main leading 2. Might well come out 1 and 2 a little bit later on. Let's see but they're certainly leading those who have made 2 stops so far in this race.
Yeah, I mean, now that we've seen these 2 stops, now we've seen at least some pit stops coming into play, this may allow us to start to decipher a little bit easier where people are going to be and realistically where people are able to or are going to be possibly coming out towards the end. Now, naturally, we know in terms of position, in terms of just out and outright pace and position, Lucchetta and Hammer are going to be up there. 100% can't argue with it. Nick Vaughan Roberts and Adam Miles, they're both very, very close once again, although they don't seem to be interesting enough. There is Nick Vaughan Roberts, and you can just see behind you, just there we go, there is Adam Miles peaking his front nose cone. Yeah, you can... I wonder if this is going to go into the favour of... almost the favour, because Adam Miles did pit a lap later, didn't actually make any difference, because he came out straight behind Nick Vaughan Roberts again. So, while we do have a bit more of an idea in terms of where people are regarding pit stops, Kevin Budgeon, I'm interested to see. I'm interested to see how Kevin Budgeon is going. He's currently sitting in P7 in the Pro, or overall, P6 in the Pro category. But he's been running his own race. It's been a little bit quiet recently. We haven't heard much from him or haven't seen much from him. I don't honestly think he's going to be that fussed because he wants to be running his own race. He knows exactly what he needs to do. There's a reason why he pitted early. But interesting to see what that materialises to.
It will indeed. This is the battle between Fabro and Webber. Although Webber is going to come out on top in this one eventually because he's made 3 stops so far in this race. The real battle is going to be between himself and the 3 in front, particularly Schultz and Wayne. Forgiarini's only made 1 stop so far, so that does not help. But we do have that very helpful graphic up now on the left-hand side that tells us how many stops have been made. However, I don't feel like we're really going to see too much of this sort itself out over the next few moments. When are we going to see the next pit stops is really the question. As I say, don't really think it's going to be too much in the near future. It really depends how long you want. In my opinion, or in my experience, I would want, especially if Vaughan Roberts and Miles, I would want to know how this race is going to pan out for as long as possible so I've got time to do something about it. If they make their second last pit stop with 10 minutes to go and then they come in 1 lap later, we've got 5 minutes to sort out where they come out in relation to Hammer and Lucchetta. At the moment, I mean, I've got no idea. Maybe they've got a better idea than we do as to what the pit delta is and where they're going to come out. But, you know, personally, I would want as long in the race to go as possible to sort out these positions and battle it out after the pit stop strategies have become clear.
It's an interesting point you raise, actually. I would like to be the same. I'm normally torn between the two. So I'm torn between two points of that. Like, first off, I think one side I completely agree in the sense that, you know, in some circumstances I just want to know, and in most circumstances I want to know. It comes to a point, and she said maybe they know something that we don't. Obviously, practice. They would have done some practice. They may be able to gauge an idea where people are going to come realistically. Giuseppe Tellini is in the pit lane for his second pit stop. So, yeah, I certainly agree. There are possibly scenarios where you don't want to. And normally, actually, I normally want to say that I would pit as late as possible. But as you say, in this particular area where you're in that sort of semi-endurance style of race with the additional pit stops, it's all actually going to happen quite quickly. You think we've had however many pit stops that equates to? A fair few pit stops there. So, yeah, I there's a mix-up between the two. I want to know as early as possible, but then at the same time, I'd want to pit as late as possible, especially with the fuel. You know, there's just lots of ways that you can...
There certainly is. As down the inside, oh, very nearly came Webber there. Tellini has now dropped behind both of these, by the way. He did actually have a longer stop than I thought he would for his second stop there, so that's a shame for him. I thought he was going to really recover well inside the top 10, but it doesn't look like that's going to fall his way for him today. As Nick Vaughan Roberts comes into the pit lane now and exits almost immediately because it's a short stop. We're going to be back to those now. Where are Lucchetta and Hammer? They are a decent amount in front, actually. There they are. Where's Vaughan Roberts? You can't even see him in this camera shot. He's certainly not in slipstream range. Hammer and Lucetta have been putting the pace on, while the other two have been not fighting between themselves up front, but they certainly have been losing time, apparently. So Hammer and Lucetta now are really putting themselves in a great position to be 1 and 2 in this race.
They are, as you say, absolutely very, very true. Indeed. So there is Nick Vaughan Roberts. You can just see Hammer and Lucetta just up the road there. They're going to be going down to Hawthorne. There you go. You can see them there. Now, they're not battling, but as soon as they start battling, all of a sudden, this is going to be a very, very big difference. This gap will shrink. Depends if they do battle or not. They may just be sitting there wanting to work together at this point. And then once they've done their final pit stops, you know, hey, that's it, gloves are off and off you go. You know, the amount of things you can do when it comes to racing, there's some differences you can do here as well.
Yeah, it's a bit complicated. As we see on board, what's the gap? Couple of seconds, nearly 3 seconds. Adam Miles deciding not to come in. Does he feel like he's maybe better off on his own? Well, let's see. On the last lap, he did a 38.7. The other two, the Hammer and Lucetta, 38.0 for Hammer. Lucetta, 37.9. If I recall correctly, that's better than qualifying. That could be the case. But yeah, there we are. Now running very quickly at the moment, Hammer and Lucetta. I don't want to jump the gun by saying this either, by the way, but I do believe that if, not mathematically of course, but if Hammer wins this race, in my opinion, he's taken a big step forward in this championship and might well be uncatchable realistically in this race. Lucetta started the day 37 points behind. He will have gained that 1 point at 36 behind. If he can win this race, he'll be 26 behind going into the final 2 races at Spa. If he doesn't, of course, if he lets Hammer win and he comes second, he'll be 46 behind. That's a big, big difference. And I think that will be Hammer's championship lead. I think Lucetta would possibly jump up second or be very close to that. Hammer would have a really big lead in this championship. And so, as far as everybody else is concerned, they absolutely can't afford to let him win the race.
Well, as you say, you know, it's one goal for one and one goal for another. You know, depending on who you are, obviously your goals are very, very different. We do have a battle a little bit further down, and I believe there was an overtake. That was Ivan Fabro and Chaz Webber having a good battle. This is the battle that's going on at the moment. There was an overtake, and Chaz Webber did indeed pass Ivan Fabro, and I wonder, perhaps, are we going to see a bit more battling? We can see a bit more back and forth between the two here. It seems that gap has opened up enough that there's going to be no slipstream that's going to make a difference there, especially going down to Hawthorne. Depends if Fabro can stay close enough to the back of Webber, then this may have an opportunity coming down to turn 1, I'd probably say.
Well, let's see where he decides to make the move, because we've seen all kinds of moves today. But Fabro being the one who's been recently overtaken, I'm not expecting him to make a move. And the fact he's still got a pit stop remaining, Webber hasn't. I don't think it would be ideal or necessary really for him to come through his inside line. It was into turn 2. A nice move from the American, and he gets himself into what is 11th place in the order right now. Might be able to jump for Giurini, who's still got 2 stops remaining. Schultz, Wayne, not too far up the road. Well, actually, Wayne and Schultz are maybe a bit too far, but let's see where Webber can get to. He's certainly going to be the AM winner here today, as Anders Nielsen has already, unfortunately, retired here from this race. However, though, with a good performance here, could well take the championship lead in the AM category and have a nice championship fight, indeed, with Tozzato maybe in 2 weeks' time for that AM crown. So we look forward to that. One championship that we haven't mentioned out of the 4 that we haven't mentioned so far in this broadcast is the Teams Championship, which is also outrageously close. 32 points separate the 3 teams. Miles ahead, 2 Falls Racing and Team Germany as well. But that is exceptionally hard for us to work out quite what's going to go on with that, really. So we'll leave the calculations on that one. However, Well, actually, it might not be too difficult, but we'll just park that one for today. We've got enough going on with the actual overall race, I think. To be honest, it is hard to work out in itself. We'll try and keep abreast of it over the course of the 2 races at Spa in 2 weeks' time. I mean, well, this, of course, it really does depend on how the race does end up here. We are set for a fantastic final 2 races at that circuit. I think that track is going to race really, really well in these cars.
That is going to be, it's going to be one hell of a race. Like I said, the track is just so big. The track is huge compared to what these cars are actually in terms of size. These cars are going to be tiny. In comparison, bear in mind, you're used to seeing, the likes of GTs and LMPs and stuff. And then you get these little go-karts going around there. The lap times are going to be, I mean, they must be 3-minute lap times, surely. Maybe even slower than that, actually. Trying to think what they would be.
I reckon over 3 minutes. I reckon so. Over 3 minutes, certainly.
3
Certainly
minutes 15. So it's going to be 3 lap races. But yeah, it's going to be a fantastic. That is going to be. There's going to be so much because it's a wide circuit as well. The problem with brands is, or one of the problems with brands, and we were seeing this, we were talking about this actually with the radicals, is when it comes to brands and the radicals, or what we found is the track is ever so slightly too narrow. It's just a little bit too narrow. The cars are very, very quick. They've got a lot of downforce. And it certainly did promote some overtaking down to the likes of Druids, sometimes down to turn 1. But it was a little bit trickier, just because of the track being a little bit narrower. It's an old circuit, or a circuit that isn't raced on modern F1 calendars. Spa, on the other hand, very, very big circuit in places, very, very wide, very, very sweeping. There is going to be a lot of side-by-side driving. We saw that. We've seen that a lot, time and time again. I think again, Interlagos was back in the very first season of the Skip Barber World Cup. That was something that just stuck with me. Is the Interlagos event. That was just constant side-by-side. May as well have been 2 different racing lines, because it was just absolutely looked like a NASCAR event. It really, really did. And I think Spa's going to be very, very similar.
I do feel like these cars make any track look wide. I know that even the circuit here does not look that wide, actually, even with these cars. But yeah, Spa, it's not the widest circuit in the world when we're talking about normal cars, but these are not normal. They're very small. And so, you're right, we are going to see 3 wide down the Kemmel Straight as a constant almost, I think, and all that kind of thing. So we look forward to that, and we hope that you join us for that in 2 weeks' time. But meanwhile, in the present, Adam Miles is in the pit lane, and he's on his way out as well, but he's not out quick enough to retake the lead from Hammer and Lucetta. Where is he? There he is still. So he's going to be out near Vaughan Roberts. He's actually going to be behind Vaughan Roberts by quite a margin, I have to say. Vaughan Roberts off the road at turn number 1, and he drops down again. So, oh dearie me, Vaughan Roberts did get up into 3rd place very, very briefly. He was actually going to steal a bit of a march on Adam Miles there, but he drives straight off the road. Oh, trying to make his way around the outside. He gets onto the grass, and he goes through the gravel. He saves the car, but he loses 3rd place.
Oh, what a send there from Nick Von Roberts. I mean, I wonder if he just got caught out, or I wonder if he didn't get caught out, but he just got a little bit too focused on what Adam Miles was doing. And at the point he missed his break, and that was unfortunately, that was the best for bad scenario. Good save, though. It was a very, very good save. We've seen a couple of those today. So I think overall, very, very good stuff. Some good. He'll be annoyed that he wasn't able to, because that would have been a guaranteed. Ahead of Adam Miles then. Yes. Vaughan Roberts, he'll be frustrated at that. They do both have one more pit stop to go. So this can play a fact that there is another opportunity here for Vaughan Roberts to be able to actually go through and to make this move stick. Because it just seems that the strategy that the number 11 has at the moment does seem to be working.
These guys, of course, all of them have got quite a margin over Kevin Budgeon now, and I think, as I predicted, he's going to finish in quite a lonely 5th place, I'm afraid, for Budgeon today. Not sure if that's going to put him out of mathematical championship contention. I think he is still going to be in mathematical contention, But it is going to be those 5 who are top 5 in this race right now who are going to be the 5 drivers fighting over that championship in 1 week's time. Just want to go back a little bit further. This is Webber and Fabro who have kind of fallen into a bit of an agreement not to fight here. But Daniele Forgiarini has done something interesting on the strategy here today. He's just made his second pit stop of the day. We're expecting one more for him, but what he has done, unlike really anybody else in the field, instead of doing one long stop, which we've seen from pretty much the other 15 drivers, he's decided to do 2 medium length stops in terms of fuel filling up. So he's decided not to spend an outrageous amount of time. Everybody else has spent half a minute in the box filling up. He's decided to do 2 15-second stops while his fuel has been going in. And then this final stop for him is going to just be a stop-go, really. But he will have to still make it to obviously abide by the rules. But it's another interesting take on the strategy. And I do hope that for the next season of the Skip Barber World Cup, we do see at least one of these endurance-style races where the different pit stops and whatever. I mean, initially 5 or 6 pit stops were announced for this particular race. That really would have been chaos, and that really would have been very interesting for us. But I really do hope we get another endurance race next season, at least one on the calendar next season, because they're so interesting. They keep you on the edge of your seat right till the very end, not in a terms of enthralling wheel-to-wheel action all race kind of way, but in a more strategical, more kind of almost test match cricket kind of way. It kind of keeps you interested throughout, and keeps you watching right till the very end, because as of right now, the order is still not corrected at all as to what we're going to see by the end.
No, as you say, we've got, what's that? I believe that is, we've got 25 minutes left of this race, and yeah, this could just all completely change. It will completely change, actually, but certainly, the order that you see now, that is going to be certainly a different order when we actually come to the final lap and the checkered flag. 3 battles currently on the go, one of which being Adam Marsden and Nick Roberts. We then got Philip Hammer and Manuel Lucchetta again, and then also a little bit further down the order we have Chaz Webber and Ivan Fabro. So these guys here, there is a little bit of fighting to a certain degree. I think one of the closest ones actually that may happen sooner or later. Philip Hammer. Lucchetta is looking very, very aggressive here. He's really pressuring. Have a look at that. He's really pressuring Lucchetta a lot as well. It's not like it's I'll sit a few tenths back. He is pressuring. Philip Hammer even looked to be taking not a defensive line, but he just came across the circuit a little bit just to try to deter any possible lunges from Lucchetta. So that's a defensive line if you ever saw one. Lucchetta is looking very, very aggressive. They both have one more pit stop to go. That's very, very wide there for Philip Hammer. Manages to keep it in check. Is he going to go on the defensive? No, because Lucchetta isn't close enough for a overtake as yet. Oh, this is really, really starting to kick off. This is going to be good fun. I'm going to enjoy the rest of this race.
It's going to be an enjoyable fight between the two. Daniele Forgiarini has made his final pit stop of the day as well. It's another fairly long one. So he must have lost quite a lot of time in the pit lane this race, but either way, he's now out in 14th place. He'll be probably battling with Pizzati, who's also made his 3 pit stops for today for the rest of this one. We'll see if maybe Fabro or Tellini maybe drop down towards them when they make their final stops, but maybe not. Only Kevin Budgeon of the top 8 has made his 3 pit stops so far. So we are expecting a lot more from this race until the end as Nick Will Roberts makes his way through on Adam Miles. Not entirely sure where that happened or how, because they weren't coming up to a particularly overtaking opportunity as far as I was aware there. But either way, Vaughan Roberts looks like he's managed to find his way into 3rd place, and both of those are desperately going to want the points. It's the difference between 80 points and 74 between the two of them at the moment. Vaughan Roberts started the day only 14 points behind Philip Hammer. He's going to be losing at least 10. He doesn't want to lose 16, doesn't want to lose 26, which it could get to at its worst point. So let's see how the rest of this race goes on. But Vaughan Roberts at least has made his way up into 3rd place.
He has indeed. Very, very true. And let's have a quick look again at that replay. There it is. It's going down into Hawthorne. So slightly not the best exit for for miles that we can see. And it was a straightforward pass, wasn't it? There was no battling as such. Adam Miles didn't get a particularly good exit going through. That is, I believe, turn 4. That would be McLaren. If I have my track maps correct, which I could be. I know that McLaren is a bend at Brands Hatch, and it is nope, it's called South Bank apparently. So I got that completely wrong. Apparently, the McLaren doesn't exist as a corner at Brands Hatch. So there we are. Ignore me. At turn 4, anyway. So yeah, just wasn't a particularly good exit at turn 4, and that was what allowed Nick Roberts to go through. Now, he needs to capitalise on this. He has a little bit. He's already extended the gap to about 0.4 of a second, which we haven't seen before. What this would lead me to believe is Vaughan Roberts does have a slight pace advantage at this stage of the race compared to Adam Miles. The fact that he's already pulled almost half a second.
Do agree, but I do think it's very hard to get away in this race, in these Skip Barbers, really. I mean, name a circuit that doesn't keep these cars exceptionally close. Even if you are a little bit slower than the car in front of you, you just grab that slipstream down the next little bit of flat out section down the home straight here. It's not a very long straight, of course, in normal cars, but you're on it for quite a long time in these cars, and you gain quite a slipstream. They're quite effective in the slipstream, and Adam Miles is just able to, even if he does have a pace disadvantage, just stick with him. And if he wants to do that, then to be honest, I would stick to the back wheel here, the back wheels of Nick Vaughan Roberts religiously here. I would follow him into the pit lane for their final stop. I wouldn't let him get an undercut on you and try and set lap times when you're on different sides of the circuits. I would absolutely follow him, absolutely everywhere he goes. So we'll see if Adam Miles does do that. But a bit of a mistake there from Vaughan Roberts, and Adam Miles might not have any other choice other than to go through here. He gets a much better exit off of turn 4, and there might be a move here into Hawthorns. He's decided to just stay behind.
He has indeed, decided to stay behind for this one. I wonder if he's going to try... I wonder if he's going to try what Vaughan Roberts has done, actually. I don't know. It does depend. That was a good exit there from Adam Miles. A little bit later on the throttle, though, than I think he would have wanted. It's cost him a little bit of time. He's pushing, though. There's not... there isn't an element of, that's a big mistake for Vaughan Roberts. That's opened up the door massively. And once again, Nick Vaughan Roberts has a big sideways moment. He manages to slot just back in almost immediately. But the damage is done at that point. And unfortunately, that's going to be, that was close. But Miles, look at how close he was to the, his back wheel was so close to the edge of the circuit then. That was another just carbon copy of what happened in turn 1. Just the back end just getting a little bit too loose. So you can drive these, you can be aggressive with these cars. But naturally with any car, there is a point at which you get past that point and the tyres just can't grip. The tyres can't give you the grip that they need. And while it's easy to break traction, you can save the car, which obviously Vaughan Roberts did, but naturally you're going way too fast into the corner at that point. But all in all, though, considering he only dropped 0.2 of a second, a pretty good recovery.
Yeah, didn't drop too much at all there. We go back to the leaders. Philip Hammer gets overtaken by Manuel Lucetta. 20 minutes to go, and we've got another lead change. I wouldn't like to know how many lead changes we've had now, because it's certainly a lot at this stage in the race, and we're going to see a lot more for the final 20 minutes. These two are going to fight it out for the race win as if their lives depend on it. Manuel Lucetta especially needs this race win badly for his championship. Philip Hammer would put himself in such a strong place with the race win here, and that he will also want to take it fairly badly. So let's see how it goes. But once again, I feel like these two also will stay very close to each other throughout these final moments of this race. But when are we going to see those final stops? All of the top 4 still have to make a pit stop. As I mentioned, only one of the top 8 in form of Kevin Budgeon does not have to make a stop for the rest of this race. So when are they going to do it? We're only 20 minutes from the end now.
Indeed, less than 20 minutes to go, and there's more battles opening up here. Forgieri and Pizzati are a little bit closer than what they were. Toledi and Weber are still in a little bit. They're still locked in battle, and then obviously we've got Lucetta and Hammer Vaughan Roberts and Miles. Tellini did just get past Robert, and Forgerini got past Pizzati as well. It's all kicking off here. We've had everything has just happened all at once. We'll see. We'll have a quick replay of these two overtakes. Let's first have a look at the Tellini one versus Webber. So again, that's just a nice straightforward one going down into Hawthorne, and then the second one. So this was the overtake done by Forgerini passing Pizzati. Again, just round the outside down into turn 1, and wow, it was a little bit wide there. For Pizzati as well for good measure. So it's all started. It's certainly all started to kick off at the moment. There's still 4 potential little battles going on. One of the ones, Webber and Tellini, they're going to be swapping positions. I reckon more so. They seem to be quite comfortable with swapping positions as it stands at the moment. And again, we spoke, but did we not speak about this about an hour ago? We spoke about this and we said, right, this is going to start getting a little bit more dicey. This is going to be a little bit more aggressive come the end of the race. 17 minutes to go. We are certainly in that position. We're in that position now where they're getting moves are becoming a little bit more, they're worth a little bit more here as well. Bear in mind, but almost everyone has to still do a final pit stop. Now, Kevin Budgeon, he's 21 seconds down currently from Nick Vaughan Roberts. Keep an eye on that. Just keep an eye on that. That is going to be a very, very close battle, I reckon. All of a sudden, I reckon Kevin Budgeon's got an opportunity to stick right on the back of Adam Miles and Barber, especially if they keep battling. Because a pit stop is around about 20, even if you're just doing a splashing down. 21 seconds. I think Kevin Budgeon has got a chance for a podium here.
I'm not. Well, I don't know. I'm not sure. It's hard to work out. It really is. We're only just over 15 minutes away from the end here. There he is, Kevin Budgeon. Set his fastest lap of the race so far. Not on the last lap, on the one before that. Roger Hooker also doing that for himself in 6th place behind. His car's obviously now getting as light as they ever will be in this race, and the track getting rubbered in nicely. So we expect to see some fast lap times. But once again, Kevin Budgeon does gain more than a second on Miles and Vaughan Roberts, who for whatever reason don't quite have the pace at the moment. They're just looking at each other a little bit, I think, more than anything else. And so it is allowing Kevin Budgeon to catch them. Although I do still think that 21-second margin is just a bit too big to really, for Budgeon to really be a factor in terms of this fight for the podium. It's not the slowest pit lane in the world, and it's on the inside of the circuit. They don't have to go through that awkward chicane on the way in either. You just go straight in. As Vaughan Roberts goes into the pit lane now. First pit stop of the front 4 with 15 minutes to go. As Pizzati, that car was, I think, on the outside of the circuit, just in front of Budgeon. Vaughan Roberts comes into the pit lane. He stops. For how long is this pit stop going to be? Well, he stops for a little while here. 6.5 or so seconds.
Here comes Budgeon.
Wow, this is going to be a lot closer than I thought. Vaughan Roberts is going to be under pressure from Kevin Budgeon. We're going to have a 3-way fight for 3rd place, I think, depending on of course, the length of Adam Miles' final pit stop.
Adam Miles is going to dictate what happens here, because all of a sudden, Kevin Budgeon's come right into play here. So we haven't seen much of him for the middle section of this race, pretty much for the last 40 minutes. Budgeon's just been running on his own accord. He hasn't really been doing, he's not been running with anyone, he's not been battling with anyone, he's just been running his own race. So fair play, we said this, does Kevin Budgeon know something that we don't? The answer, yes, he does. Because he's managed to keep it on check. So yeah, Adam Miles, I imagine, will respond soon, probably in the next lap or 2 laps, perhaps. Because it seems to be that he's looking fast, isn't he? Kevin Budgeon is looking fast. So, yeah, Adam Miles is almost on a completely identical strategy to Nick Vaughan Roberts in terms of pits. It just happens to be, roughly a lap later. Is this going to be the lap? Yes, it is. So Adam Miles is into the pit. Now, position-wise, it was pretty close. It was almost identical positioning. If anything, I think both Vaughan Roberts and Adam Miles are a little bit closer to the actual pit exit. So Adam Miles is already on pit exit now. In fact, he may have got
Oh, that's such a short stop for Adam Miles.
Whoa.
1 second. That is a lot shorter for Adam Miles than it was for Vaughan Roberts. And so it's going to be between those two, and they're not going to be fighting over a podium place. Adam Miles is going to be cruising home to third here by the looks of things at the penultimate round of the Skip Barber World Cup. It's a great performance from Adam Miles. It's a great strategy from Adam Miles. Only 1 second of a stop there. He's gained 5.5 seconds out of nowhere. Not entirely sure why. We might get to the bottom of it after the race. But Miles there gaining a load of time.
Very, very impressive stuff. I'm impressed with Kevin Budgeon. Kevin Budgeon is just, again, just disappeared out of nowhere. He might even get the position. Nick Vaughan Roberts didn't have a particularly good run. I think he got held up a little there by some traffic, and I reckon there's going to be an opportunity here. And there it is. There's going to be the move from... Oh, I thought I was going to move there from Kevin Budgeon. He has to wait another lap. So can't quite get past.
Yep, not quite for the moment. That's a lap car, by the way, just in behind them right now. It is the car for Giurini, I think, who's just in behind. It is indeed. There he is. That was a good guess. 13th position for Forgerini there. He's got quite a way in front of him and quite a way behind, so he's not going to be any trouble to those two. As we see these two might be a bit of trouble to each other here in a few moments' time. Manuel Lucetta and Philip Hammer battling away. Only just over 10 minutes to go. The tension rising between these two. But as we've seen in that battle for third, this could be decided in the pit stops. It's Kevin Budgeon's in the pit lane again.
Why is Kevin Budgeon in the pit lane?
Is this fuel? There might be fuel concerns here. I don't think he's made... I think he might have just gone wrong on his strategy. We did see someone mentioning, just in the YouTube chat a couple of months ago, Kevin saying himself he's ruined his pit strategy. I thought just by the way he'd done the race so far, I thought he was going to make it to the end. But Kevin Budgeon needs fuel, 10 seconds worth of it there. So, ouch. Very, very painful for Kevin Budgeon. A long 10 seconds. He exits the pit lane in 6th place, having made 4 stops in this race. I think he'll regain 5th from Roger Hooker, but he wanted 4th, and he's not going to get it.
That's such a shame there for Kevin Budgeon. I feel for him. That was such a good strategy call. The fact that the early pits, the early pit stops, it all just sort of settled into place. It's such a shame that the fuel strat didn't work in his favour. Very, very gutting. And what this potentially does mean, why is Lucetta in the pit lane as well? Actually, no, that'd be right, because he's making his final stop. That would be...
panic over.
Sorry, yep, there we go. That was a flurry of emotions there for a brief moment. But we're back to we've calmed down now. So Lucetta is in the pit lane, splash and dash. That's pretty standard. 1.22 seconds actually pit time. So Hammer needs to respond, but what he needs one hell of an in lap, because the gap there is so close. It's only a few tenths of a second. 10 minutes left to go here, and all of a sudden all the gaps have disappeared. They've all opened up, there's only actually one battle as it stands at the moment, and that is Chaz Webber and Giuseppe Tellini still.
Yeah, Tellini will have to make a pit stop though in these final 10 minutes, so it will peter out, but it does mean we can have a little bit more focus on the leading battle, which we're hoping for, and it's going to come to a dramatic conclusion towards the end of this race. But pretty much throughout the entirety of this, I can't remember a time where we haven't had something to watch in this race. It's been a very, very good race indeed. One thing that has surprised me though is the lack of fuel flexibility that these guys have had. Kevin Budgeon's strategy, I thought he was absolutely fine in terms of making it on fuel. I didn't think there were any concerns whatsoever for him there. But apparently there were big concerns, and so much so that he was going to run out of fuel with 10 minutes to go. He is still going to finish 5th, despite all that. Which in another world he might have finished there anyway, but he will have been hoping for better, certainly. But let's see. Philip Hammett comes over the line again. He goes past the pit lane again. He not only needs very, very good in-laps here, he also needs that pit stop to be as short as possible. It cannot be longer than 2 seconds, I don't think, or this race is going to be over.
Well, it's certainly... He's not going to pit going into the... He's not going to pit coming across the start-finish line, is he?
Oh, no. Well, no, you can't do that, but on the penultimate laps, definitely. As you're taking the white flag, he could pit.
Yes. So that so it could be a one-lap dash.
could. I hope not, because I want to see them fight, but but they might not. They don't want to see that, obviously, because it's quite stressful. But Philip Hammer might well stay out there to the penultimate lap. As Roger Hooker now makes his final pit stop of the day.
Indeed, Roger Hooker, he is in the pit lane for his final start. I'm still so gutted about Kevin Budgeon. Although I wonder where Kevin Budgeon. Yeah, so Kevin Budgeon actually is he's going to end up in P5. So in all honesty, all things considered, he's not actually going to lose out on a position in terms of where he was. He's more just lost out on the fact that the gap is now 26 seconds. So he's not able to fight for that P4.
Oh. I've just seen something quite catastrophic in the YouTube chat. Kevin Budgeon apparently worked out his fuel in imperial gallons rather than US gallons.
Oh.
I don't know what an imperial gallon is, or a US gallon.
Imperial gallon, from memory, is slightly less than... It's one or the other is slightly less. And I believe, Nate, if you could just confirm that for us.
What a gallon was a gallon?
No. It's like ton. You've got a metric ton, and you've got a ton, and then an imperial ton. There's two different types of ton. Don't ask. I don't know why. I'm not clever enough to know why, but I just know that there's two. Yeah, for some reason, there's 2 gallons. So imperial is us, because obviously US is not us. I would imagine.
Yeah. Yes. Indeed. I believe Kevin Budgeon is from the UK as well, so he will in the same boat there. Excuse me. Be in the same boat. He did let Sebastian Schultz. Excuse me. He did let Sebastian Schultz down the down the straight there. But it's not going to matter too much, because Sebastian Schultz also needs to make his final stop of the day.
Indeed. Right. So I've just looked. So 1 imperial gallon is the equivalent to approximately 1.2 US gallons. So the pit strategy obviously was being calculated, and so yeah, that's why. So our gallon is less than a US gallon.
If he's done US gallons, he would have thought that the fuel tank was bigger, or he could go longer, maybe. Well, he clearly must have thought that he could go longer on fuel, because he's ended up 10 minutes short randomly. We've got all kinds of people different helping us now. So yeah, there we are. Chaz Draycott here as well. I also did not know there are different types of gallon. So that is. Yeah, I mean, gallons are stupid anyway, aren't they? Anyway, back to more important things, because Philip Hammer just making his way out of the pit lane right now. Manuel Lucchetta has indeed got through, and so what is the gap going to be? That's the more important thing. There it is. It's basically nothing with 5 minutes to go.
It is. Sorry, that's killed me off. That's like saying kilometers are stupid. You can't just
No, kilometers aren't stupid. Kilometers are better.
Yeah, but
liters are also better.
Yeah. Oh dear. Oh god. Oh, so that's killed me off. That has. Okay, yeah. So going back to the racing. Yeah, Philip Hammer. It's close. What's that? 3 laps left. This and 2 more.
Well, I reckon well, if they're 2 or 3 laps at the line here, it's going to be quite close. 1 minute. We're in the 1 minute 38, sort of low 1:38. So we'll wait and see when we get to the line here. But it might well be 1 or 2 laps. 2 or 3 laps to go. But either way, it's too many as far as Manuel Lucchetta is concerned.
Well, yes, I think there's certainly a conflict of outcome in what both drivers want. Philip Hammer, he's looking aggressive though, isn't it? He's looking very, very aggressive. Like, very aggressive. The gap's come down for about 0.3 of a second, all the way down to 1/10 and a half. I tell you what, I wasn't. I certainly wasn't awake at the start of this. Not going to lie, I've come off the back of the Majors 24, having not slept for the best part of many hours. I'm certainly awake now, because this is really, really starting to kick off. Little bit of a gap opened up there, but then it closes right down. It seems the first half of the track, is in favour of Lucetta. The second half is in favour of Philip Hammer. So once you get past sort of turn 4 down into the back half of the section, going through Hawthorne and then beyond, I think this is where Philip Hammer has potentially a slight advantage. But 0.3 of a second, it's just too close. It is too close.
It is very, very close, but very enjoyable to watch as well. Lucetta then leads on the third last lap of this race. There'll be 2 to go at the line here on this occasion. We're going to get 61 laps out of these guys here today. A lot of laps, but it certainly hasn't felt like that. A 100-minute race seems like a tall order at the start of the day, but it has been enthralling action from start to finish. The pit strategies and everything going on have finally sorted themselves out. We've reduced our leading group to 2. It's Lucetta versus Hammer. In terms of the championship as well, it is important. 37 points between them at the start of the day, 36 after Lucetta's pole position here in qualifying. It could be down to 26 if it finishes as it is right now, but Hammer is not going to take second place easily at all. He is going to fight for this one. Through the final corner they come. There are 2 laps to go. Where is Hammer going to make his move? When is he going to make his move?
Well, that's even if he makes his move, to be fair. Is he going to be able to? Lucetta has to go on the defensive line. Coming down, Philip Hammer's going to try and go on the outside. Can't quite work. Does he try the cutback? No, he doesn't. He doesn't have the speed quite yet to this particular lap. He's closer, though, than he was last lap. He's very, very close, isn't he? And he's going to get even closer, I would imagine. This will be 2 more laps to go. There'll be this one and then 1 more. And that will be it. Or actually, is this the... No, this isn't the last lap. No, there is 1 more lap after this.
There will be 1 more, and it's going to be very, very good indeed. Out through turn 4 and onto Grand Prix circuit now, round the back of the circuit, into the trees and into towards Hawthorns. Is Hammer going to be able to make the move here? Not quite, although he's going to poke the nose, just show the nose down the inside and not make the move. Sebastian Schultz comes into the pit lane. We're getting towards the end now, and so we do have to see Schultz and Tellini in. They will do, surely, on either this lap or the next one. If they've only got 2 more opportunities to make their mandatory third stop. Tellini is going to wait till the very last opportunity, by the looks of things, to make that pit stop, but we'll not worry about those guys now. Or indeed the battle for third, which is going on between Adam Miles and Nick Vaughan-Roberts, because the battle for the win is happening right now. There's seconds remaining on the clock, but much to Manuel Lucetta's despair, there's still another lap left in this race. There's still life left in this race. He's going to have to defend for his life to try and win this race. The penultimate round of the Skip Barber World Cup Season 2. Final lap here at Brands Hatch. Philip Hammer pulls to the outside very early. Lucetta not falling for that. He covers the inside line into turn 1. He runs out a bit wide. Hammer with a nice exit, but not good enough to be able to get through into Druids.
No, not this time. He needs the exit out of turn 4. That's the exit that he needs. He needs to get the exit right on the exit of turn 4. He then needs to carry the speed through. He goes slightly wide, corrects it, manages to keep it all in check though. This is the one. This is the important one. He needs to go a little bit wider. You can see there just a tad, tries to get the cutback on throttle nice and early, has to back out of it though briefly, but he does get a good run. This is going to be the do or die move, I reckon, because there's going to be no other position here. It's going to be Lucetta on the inside, Hammer on the outside. Oh my goodness, this is going to end 2 ways.
Let's see, outside line for Hammer. Will he be able to stick it round here through Hawthorns? They're still side by side. Lucetta on the inside for Dingledale as well as Westfield's here. So he does hold on by the looks of things. There's a few more corners for him to hang on, but he might just have won this race from pole to victory. But it certainly hasn't been like that during. He's been hounded all the way through by Philip Hammer. Penultimate corner for Lucetta. Through they go. Hammer with a decent exit, but not quite good enough. Into the final corner they come. And Manuel Lucetta looks like he's just about going to hold on. He's going to get pushed pretty much through the final corner. They're going to be side by side to the line. It's not a great exit off the final corner for Lucetta. Will Hammer be able to get there? He might have stolen it.
He's done it.
He's stolen it.
Oh my goodness.
Philip Hammer's stolen the win. And Manuel Lucetta spins his car off in disgust because he's lost this race in the very final meters. Unbelievable racing between the two. Philip Hammer wins it. And Manuel Lucetta is really disappointed with himself. He gets beaten to the line in a photo finish.
Oh my! No way! We replays must we must get some replays there. 62 laps, 62 laps, an hour and 43 minutes, and it all comes down to one less than a tenth of a second. Philip Hammer absolutely drove that to. That couldn't have been a perfect. That could have been more of a perfect last corner if he tried. Oh wow, that was absolutely a fair play. To be fair, fair play to both. Fair play to both Lucchetta and Hammer. Really, really fair. That was very, very fair racing. Very, very fair racing. We are going to need to look at a replay of that. And I think everyone needs to look at a replay of that. So let's see if we can get a replay of that now, because that was one of the closest finishes I think I've ever seen in this race. There's been some close finishes here. So this is the we'll bring the full event finishing order in a minute. Hammer just gets a run. He just gets such a good run on the exit and manages to carry the speed. I mean, how close do you want it to be? Oh, I feel for Lucchetta. I really, really do. As much as obviously it was fantastic, I really feel for Mama Lucchetta there.
I certainly do as well. Really disappointed for him, but Hammer steals it right at the end. What a great drive from him. But interestingly, Kevin Budgeon still has not crossed the line. I think he's having problems out there at the moment. He's down in 11th. We'll see if he gets to the line or excuse me, or what happens there. But either way, there is your margin by the end. It's very, very small. Less than a tenth of a second between Hammer and Lucchetta after a great race between the two. Adam Miles did come under fire from Nick Vaughan-Roberts for third late on in that race, but he held on. Roger Hooker with a top 5 there. Chaz Weber takes the AM Championship standings lead with a 6th place here. Sebastian Schultz with that late pit stop finishes 7th, and of Tellini, who recovers well to 8th. Even Fabro, I believe, with a late pass on Torsten Seifert there, manages to get through for the Pro-Am win. They're at 9th and 10th. Kevin Budgeon still has yet to come across the line in 11th place, but I believe he will still get that, since he's completed more of the race than the likes of Forgerini has in 12th. Passati 13th, Chris Wayne, the last car to finish, in 14th. Anders Nielsen and Loris Amadeo did not make it to the end, unfortunately. But yeah, what is going on with Kevin Budgeon at the moment? He's maybe coming towards the end of the lap now, but he's still not crossed the line for some reason. He might be getting pushed right now by Roger Hooker. I think Budgeon might have run out of fuel there.
It might be. Yeah, you're right. He is.
Yes, he's getting pushed because he's run out of fuel, though, Kevin Budgeon.
I mean, so he managed obviously to come across the line. He has been classified for 11. Yeah, he was classified. Wow. Yes, that was the thing. What a race! What a race! That was absolutely fantastic. We do have a very, very we do have a little bit of time for a couple of interviews. One of which, did you want to have a quick chat with Nick Vaughan-Roberts that we've got in the waiting room?
Yes, let's do that, shall we? We'll bring him up and have a quick chat. Nick, welcome to the commentary booth. Good to have you here after a long race, of course. 4th place for you in the end. How do you assess that result after all that went on throughout the day? Because obviously you were close to Adam Miles in the end, but couldn't quite get that podium.
Yeah, it was a tricky race actually, because the length of it meant that it was pretty much two full tanks of fuel. But then coming to the end, it wasn't quite enough. Obviously, it depends who you're behind, how much draft you're getting, how much fuel you can save. But I put a tiny amount in. That's why I ended up 5 seconds behind Adam after the last stop, which helped me catch him. Obviously, I could go flat out, and he was saving. And he was saving earlier. It was a bit of all over the place, really. But I'm happy with 4th. Probably anywhere in the top 4 is probably where I was going to end up. So happy with that.
So you've been having a very good run out this season, of course. Started the day only 14 points behind Philip Hammer. Do you think you'll be able to catch him now after, obviously, he's won this race? Unfortunately for you, stolen that race right at the end. Do you think you'll be able to catch him now, or do you think he's a little bit too far away?
I'd probably say too far away, but you never know what happens. I know there is a drop week in there, so that might mix it up a little bit. But it's going to be, he's probably got it, I think. Yeah. And Adam probably will be level with me sort of by now, or will be close.
Let's see, he started 12 points behind you. How many points were it? Yeah, he gained about 6 on you today, so yeah, he closed in a little bit on you, certainly. How are you looking forward to Spa, by the way? I'm very much looking forward to watching it. How are you looking forward to driving it?
I don't mind the track. In the Skippy, it's a bit of a draft fest, especially down, the whole, I can't remember what street's called, but yeah, you just end up catching and passing every lap pretty much. So it's going to be one of those down to the last few laps, fighting for position. Yeah, anything could happen then. You never know.
Absolutely. We look forward to it, and we look forward to seeing you there in a couple of weeks' time. But Nick, thanks very much for coming to talk to us. It's been good to have a chat after the race, and congratulations on the drive today.
Great. Cheers, guys. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Thanks very much. Nick Boyle-Roberts there, joining us from 4th place. I don't know if he's a football fan, but I'm sure if he's Welsh and a football fan at the moment, he'll be very pleased. And indeed, hopefully pleased with P4 here today as well. Might order for 1 or 2 more moments for anybody else, but it doesn't look like anybody else will join us. I mean, it's hard to get over what a great race that was between Philip Hammer and Manuel Luchetto. Wow, I can't quite believe that happened. A very, very close finish. We're unlikely to see closer, actually, throughout.
Well, certainly so. That is going to be, that is one of the best finishes to a race. Absolutely fantastic stuff when it comes to the race as always, and just the series as as a whole as always. It's just absolutely fantastic. So yeah, obviously not too far away. We do have Kevin Budgeon. Let's have a quick chat with Kevin. We'll bring him in very, very, very quickly. Kevin, oh dear, I think is probably the best way to describe it. How I can't imagine how frustrating.
Oh no, it's terrible. I really thought I had it sorted. I had a overlay on my iRacing to work out the fuel for me. I come in, it told me what I needed. I quickly Googled it. It told me 4.3 gallons. I put it in, come out, and I still needed a gallon of fuel. And then someone in the chat told me that the US gallon equivalent would have been 5.2, and I put 4.3 in.
It's certainly not ideal. Interesting enough, though, I think that we were talking about this actually at the start, and you made your pit stops very, very early on, and we were sort of asking, we were saying that obviously Kevin knows something that we don't. What was the reasoning behind the early pit stops?
To be honest, I was getting bored playing follow my leader, so I thought, spice it up. I'll try something different, and I think it nearly would have come off because I had Nick, but obviously I had to pit.
It nearly did, like you said. It wasn't too far away because we were thinking that we were in speculation. We were in that sort of conversation of what's actually happening. Is it yes? Have we? Is it going to be a battle? Is it not going to be? And it ended up being, like I said, a fantastic initial battle. We thought this is going to be an absolute cracker of a battle, and obviously, unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be. But finale in a couple of weeks' time for Spa. Is that a track you're going to be looking forward to?
Haven't done it for a while in Skippy, so I'm sure it'll be fun. It's nice to get a nice new track that we haven't done for a while.
Absolutely, it's certainly a big track. So yeah, it's a big old track at Spa. A lot of slipstream in there, a lot of overtaking opportunities, and but like I said, look forward to hopefully being able to catch up with you. No, listen again. I think just commiserations for that for the race today, Kevin. But honestly, I think really, really excited to see what Spa brings for you.
Oh yeah, thanks a lot. Looking forward to it.
As it's going to be fantastic. Kevin, thank you very much, mate. And I just can't. Just so unlucky. So unlucky.
Yep. Proper went tits up, didn't it, eh?
There's always next time.
Yeah, look forward to it.
Cheers, Kevin.
Cheers, mate. Bye.
There we are. Kevin Budgeon. Well,
Absolutely.
I think it's time for us to wrap up.
I think it is. We've been live for a little while now. I think it's fair to say, but I've enjoyed every second of it today. I have to say it's been absolutely fantastic. Was a little bit worried when I saw 1 hour 40 races. Obviously, we're both on the back of 24-hour races this weekend, so was a little bit concerned, but I absolutely loved every second of that race. And indeed, the finale was very fitting to it as well. A wonderful race, of course. Thanks very much to everybody who's been tuned in this evening, I should say. And indeed, everybody who's been telling us about Imperial and US Gallons, because I certainly didn't realise quite what was going on there. But yeah, it's been good to hear from a few people as well throughout the race. I hope you all join us in a couple of weeks' time here on Absolute Sim Racing for the finale of the Skip Barber World Cup in Season 2, the final 7th round at Spa-Francorchamps. But from me, Ewan Illyrian, Dan Handover alongside me, it's goodbye for now.